This happened a few months ago. I'm 32, and I often spent weekends hiking in Angeles National Forest for some quiet. It was my escape from academic life, a chance to study local plants. Most of the time, it was peaceful. But I've never stopped thinking about what happened. I usually set up camp away from the crowds. Tall pine trees surrounded me, and the trails felt familiar. One Saturday afternoon, I ventured off the beaten path, hoping to find something rare. The sun was bright, but the deeper I went, the darker the woods became. Then I stumbled upon an old stone structure. It looked abandoned, but something felt off. I took some photos, but as I stood there, an unexpected chill ran through me. Maybe it was just the mountain air, I thought. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that place. I went back, drawn by a feeling I couldn't explain. It looked the same, but the air felt different this time. I noticed strange markings on the stones. They looked like symbols, but I couldn't make sense of them. When the wind picked up, I heard something like whispers. I wasn't sure if I imagined it. I asked some fellow hikers about the area. They shared their own unsettling stories. One talked about figures seen lurking between the trees. Another mentioned a feeling of being watched. I shrugged it off, but their words stuck with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. One evening I returned to the structure. The air was heavy, as if something was waiting. I examined the markings closer, my heart racing. It felt wrong, like I was trespassing. I felt a cold sweat on my back. Suddenly I could have sworn I heard my name whispered, but I couldn't find anyone around. Maybe it was just my mind, but I wanted to leave. As I turned, something caught my eye in the trees. A shadowy figure stood there staring. Was it a trick of the light? I think it blinked. My heart dropped, and my feet felt glued to the ground. Then it vanished. I stumbled back, my breath quickening. The forest was too quiet now. I tried to convince myself that I was safe, but I wasn't so sure. I turned to leave. Then I heard it again, more insistent this time. Stay. I dashed deeper into the woods, not stopping until I reached my car. My hands shook as I drove away. I could still feel the weight of that place. I'll never forget that feeling of being watched. I still think about the stone structure. Was there something hidden there? Or was it just my mind unraveling? I don't know if I'll ever return. It's been weeks since I ran from that place, but I still felt its pull. I tried to move on, to shake the heaviness off my chest, but it lingered like a shadow. Every night I dreamed of the stone structure, the whispers that melted into the wind. It consumed my thoughts more than I wanted to admit. I had to go back. So one Saturday, I returned. The sun was bright, and for a moment I thought it might be a good hike after all. I parked my car and grabbed my gear. My heart raced, a mix of excitement and dread. As I walked, I recalled the trees, the unsettling quiet, and that figure. What had it wanted from me? I made my way back to the stone structure. The forest was calm, but it felt different. The air crackled around me, charged with something I couldn't name. As I approached, the place loomed larger, ominous against the backdrop of the bright sky. I stood there for a moment, catching my breath. The markings on the stones felt more pronounced this time, glowing with a strange energy under the sunlight. I knelt down, almost as if drawn in by a magnetic force. Then, I noticed something new, a faint outline of what looked like a doorway in the stone wall, hidden by vines and moss. I took a deep breath. Should I explore it? I thought back to the stories I'd heard from other hikers, those tales of figures and being watched. Was I tempting fate by stepping inside? But my curiosity outweighed my caution. I pushed the vines aside and stepped through the opening. Inside, it was dark and cool. The air was stale, smelling of damp earth and something else. Something bitter. I pulled out my flashlight. The beam cut through the shadows, revealing walls covered in more symbols, more than I remembered. They danced and twirled like they were alive. That's when I felt it again. A presence, filling the space behind me. I whirled around, but there was nothing. Just the sound of my own breath, ragged and echoing. I could feel the weight of unseen eyes, and my stomach twisted in a knot. I took a step back, but I was rooted, my feet unwilling to move. Then I heard it, soft, almost like a sigh. Leave. It came from the shadows, slithering around me. Panic ignited in my chest. I spun again, searching, but the darkness swallowed my light. Each pulse of my heartbeat echoed in my ears. I had to get out. I turned and dashed toward the doorway, but it felt like I was moving in slow motion. The air thickened, pushing against me. As I stumbled back into the light, I caught a glimpse of movement. Just at the edge of my vision, a figure loomed, tall, shadowy, and indistinct. It gestured, a slow, deliberate motion towards the depths of the structure. I realized in that moment I wasn't alone. Chills shot through me. I didn't wait to understand what it meant. I sprinted into the forest, branches whipping against my arms, adrenaline surging. The world around me faded, and all I could think was that I needed to escape. The whispers followed, louder this time, demanding, urgent. Stay. I burst through the trees, heart hammering. I didn't stop until I reached my car, breathless and shaken. What had I just experienced? Who or what was that figure? As I drove away, one thought gripped me. I had awakened something, and it wasn't through with me yet. I spent the next few days in a daze. The experience haunted me, curling around my thoughts like fog. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had crossed a line, and whatever I had disturbed was waiting for me. Friends texted me, asking me to join them for dinner or a movie, but I constantly made excuses. How could I explain what I was going through? Late one night, unable to sleep, I decided to research the stone structure. I opened my laptop and typed in Angeles National Forest Ancient Ruins. My heart raced as a few articles popped up. Most talked about the forest's history and its trails, but one caught my attention. It described strange markings found on stones throughout the forest, saying they were remnants of an old ritual site. The people who documented it claimed to have experienced bizarre occurrences, figures in the shadows, whispers in the wind. I couldn't believe it. This was it. My fear began to morph into something else. Curiosity. Maybe I wasn't alone in my experience after all. The article ended with a warning. The site was said to be cursed. It advised against returning after dark, hinting at those who had gone missing. I froze. Had I run into trouble? My stomach twisted at the thought. I wanted to close the browser and forget everything, but my finger hovered over the mouse. Instead, I clicked on a forum link where other hikers shared their encounters. As I scrolled, I felt a chill creep up my spine. Countless stories echoed mine. One person mentioned seeing a tall figure near the stone structure, a sighting so closely resembling my own. Another claimed to have heard their name called from the depths of the site. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. My name. Determined not to be a victim of fear, I decided to return, but I needed to be prepared. I set a plan. I'd go the next afternoon, armed with a friend. I texted Emily, someone who loved hiking as much as I did, and told her I needed company for an adventure. Her quick response came back. Absolutely. Sounds fun. Where are we going? I hesitated, the words sitting heavy on my tongue. How could I explain the urgency, the fear, without sounding crazy? I messaged back simply, just trust me, it'll be an adventure. The next day we parked at the same trailhead. I wasn't sure how I'd feel having someone else with me. Would I appear foolish if I hesitated? As we started our trek, I tried to act casual, talking about the weather and the beauty of the forest. But every step felt like a countdown to something I didn't fully understand. When we reached the stone structure, I paused, taking in the details I had missed before. The vines now looked almost alive, pulsing as if the stones were breathing. Emily noticed my hesitation. "You okay?" "Yeah, it's a bit eerie," I replied, forcing a smile. The truth was, my heart raced as I remembered that figure. I tried to shake it off. We pushed aside the vines, revealing the entrance. This time, I felt a warmth instead of dread, like the sunlight was wrapping around us. But the moment we crossed that threshold, the temperature dropped, the air thickening around us. Then I heard a whisper. "Welcome back." My breath caught in my throat, and I spun to look at Emily, but she had not heard it. "What was that?" She cocked her head and shrugged. "You heard something?" I took a step deeper into the darkness. "Yeah, let's just keep going." And then everything changed. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, and a chill swept through the space that had nothing to do with the temperature. I could feel it, that presence again, but this time it was different. That's when I saw it. The tall figure was no longer a mere shadow in my memories. It stood before us clearer than before. It pointed down into the abyss. I felt dread wash over me. What did it want? And what would happen next? The figure lingered for a heartbeat, a silent sentinel in the dim light. Emily glanced at me, her brow furrowing. "Are you sure you're okay?" she asked, her voice low. I wanted to say yes, but the knot in my stomach tightened. "I'm fine. Just, let's check it out." The figure gestured again, insistently, as if urging us to follow it deeper. With a sudden rush of determination, I took a few cautious steps forward. The figure melted away into the shadows, leaving only whispers behind. I turned to Emily, trying to mask my fear. "Let's just see what's down there." She hesitated, glancing back at the entrance as if contemplating our escape. "Is this really a good idea?" "Maybe we'll find something that explains what's going on," I insisted. "We came all this way." With a reluctant nod, she followed me as we stepped deeper into the cold darkness. The air was thick, almost oppressive. Every sound echoed, our footsteps, our breathing. Even the seemingly far-off rustling of leaves sent shivers down my spine. As we ventured further, the markings on the stone walls became clearer. They weren't just random symbols, they depicted figures in various poses, some performing what looked like rituals. My heart raced at the implications. "Look at these," I said, pointing at one carving that looked like it was dancing. "What do you think it means?" Emily squinted at the drawings, the light of my phone flickering over the carvings. "I don't know, but it doesn't feel right. I mean, look at them. They almost look like they're trapped." An uneasy feeling settled over me. We shouldn't touch anything. Before I could say more, Emily reached out and brushed her fingers lightly over one of the carvings. As if awakened by her touch, a low rumble filled the air. The ground trembled beneath us, and suddenly the markings began to glow, pulses of warm light radiating from the stone. "Whoa!" Emily exclaimed, stepping back. "What did I just do?" I grabbed her arm, panic surging. "We need to leave, now." But as we turned to retreat, the shadows deepened around us. The figure reappeared, closer this time, its eyes glowing like embers. It watched us with a hunger, an unsettling presence that felt alive and aware. Emily gasped, and I locked onto her gaze, feeling our heartbeats quicken together. "Why is it here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't have the answer. My instinct screamed at me to run, yet curiosity held me there. "What does it want?" I whispered back, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing on my chest. But before we could figure it out, a sudden roar echoed through the chamber. The sound made the stones tremble and sent us both stumbling backward. The figure pointed once again, but this time it seemed to beckon us toward an even darker passageway. "Should we go?" Emily asked, her voice barely rising above the cacophony. "Do we have another choice?" I said, my stomach twisting. Just as we edged toward the new path, the ground beneath us began to break apart, creating a chasm. My heart sank. This couldn't be happening. We either faced whatever the figure wanted, or fell into the void. "Emily, take my hand," I shouted, feeling the ground tremble more violently. But then something ancient and powerful, pulled me backward, wrenching my grip from her hand. "No!" I screamed, reaching out for Emily as she fell into the shadows. I scrambled to grab her just as darkness surrounded me completely. The figure loomed tall above the chaos, and all I could do was scream her name. And then it all went dark. I came to in darkness, my heart racing. I lay on a cold, hard surface, disoriented. The echoes of Emily's name still hung in the air, a haunting reminder of what had just happened. I pushed myself up, blinking against the blackness. "Emily," I called, my voice trembling. No response, just silence. I grasped at the air, feeling the walls around me. Stone? It seemed like I had ended up in some sort of cave or chamber. My fingers brushed against something smooth. A wall, or another carving. I couldn't tell. Panic surged again, racing through my veins. Without thinking, I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking as I swiped the screen on. The faint light flickered to life, illuminating the space around me. It was a small room, no larger than a closet, but it was filled with strange artifacts, bones, twisted roots, and items that looked like remnants from another time. Then I froze. In the corner, surrounded by shadows, I saw movement. A figure, shorter than the one we had encountered, emerged from the darkness. With a gasp, I raised my phone, the light catching on its features. A child. A small boy, maybe 7 or 8, with dirt smudged across his face. His eyes were wide and bright, staring at me. "Where's Emily?" I choked out, my throat tight. The boy didn't respond. He tilted his head, curiosity replacing the fear in his gaze. Uncertainty washed over me. Was he real, or was I losing my mind? "Did you see her?" I pressed, my voice cracking. He stepped closer, and I noticed the markings engraved into his skin, symbols similar to those on the walls outside. "You shouldn't have touched it," he said in a soft, eerie voice. "Now they know you're here." "What do you mean?" I asked, my pulse quickening. He pointed toward the ceiling, where I could just make out shadows slithering. Whispers filled the air, overlapping and chaotic. I strained to hear. Strange words, rhythmic and ancient. "Get out," he said suddenly, "while you still can." His warning sank deep into my gut. "I can't leave without Emily," I urged, my eyes darting around the cramped space. Panic clawed at me again. His expression changed, shifting from curiosity to something darker. He leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper. "They want her too. Don't let them take you." "Who? What do you mean?" Before he could answer, the ground shook violently. The walls vibrated, and the light of my phone flickered. I stumbled, reaching for the boy, but he took a step back into the shadows, his features blurring until he vanished completely. "No, come back," I shouted, but he didn't reappear. Instead, I was left alone with rumbling walls and the cursed whispers rising ominously. Just then, from above, the figure materialized again, its glowing eyes casting a sinister light. My breath caught in my throat. "Emily," I cried again, feeling an overwhelming urge to confront the figure. Maybe it could help, or maybe it was something far worse. The figure pointed toward a dark opening on the opposite wall. A way out, or deeper into this nightmare. I took a step forward, heart pounding, ready to face whatever came next, and then I heard it, a familiar scream. My stomach dropped. "Emily!" I bolted toward the opening, urgency driving me onward. What horrors awaited us both? As I stumbled through the dark opening, a rush of cold air enveloped me. The space opened up into a narrow corridor, just wide enough for me to squeeze through. Shadows danced on the rough walls as my phone's light flickered ahead. I moved quickly, adrenaline pushing me forward despite the rising fear gnawing at my insides. "Emily!" I shouted again, my voice echoing off the stone like it was swallowed by the darkness. Nothing. Just the relentless whispers that seemed to follow me, curling around my mind like smoke. Suddenly I stopped. A sound. A rustling from deeper within the corridor, followed by soft sobbing. My heart leaped. "Emily," I called softly, hope igniting in my chest. The sobbing intensified, and I hurried toward the sound, guiding myself with the light from my phone. As I rounded a bend, I halted. There was a faint glow ahead, and with it, the familiar figure of Emily, huddled against the wall, her eyes wide and fearful. "Emily!" I rushed toward her, relief flooding through me, but then I noticed the shadows. They were shifting, their forms twisting and stretching as if aware of my presence. "Get away from me!" she shrieked, recoiling. I felt a chill run down my spine at her sudden panic. "Emily, it's me! It's safe!" I reached for her, but she pressed her back against the stone, shaking her head violently. "No, they're coming!" she screamed, pointing behind me. I spun around, the phone's light revealing a dozen pairs of glowing eyes emerging from the shadows, swirling like dark smoke. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my body didn't respond. I was frozen in place. "Run!" Emily shouted, and that startled me back into action. I took a step toward her, the weight of panic overwhelming my senses. How could I reach her without unleashing whatever these things were? But then I caught a glimpse of what was moving in the dark. Not just shadows, but forms, twisted, grotesque shapes. They slinked closer and my breath caught. Their whispers grew louder, surrounding us. "Come with us." They beckoned in a chorus of voices, each more chilling than the last. "Emily, get up!" I yelled, desperation flooding my voice. She hesitated for a moment, and her eyes met mine, a combination of fear and determination flickering within them. With a surge of resolve, I lunged forward, grabbing her arm. "We can't stay here." She nodded, and we bolted together, sprinting down the corridor as fast as our legs could carry us. The shadows surged, reaching for us with outstretched hands, the whispers a cacophony in our ears. Not looking back, I pulled Emily along, the passageway shifting as if reshaping itself to trap us. A fork appeared ahead, one direction dimly lit with the faintest glow, the other swallowed in darkness. "Left or right?" I shouted, panic threading through my voice. "Left," she cried. We dove into the brightly illuminated tunnel, just as the whispers intensified, angry and sharp. I felt the rush of air as shadows swept past our heels, but we pressed on, the glow ahead growing brighter. This was no ordinary escape. We were racing against whatever chaos was behind us. That's when I saw it. At the tunnel's end, something massive loomed. A swirling vortex pulsating with energy, flickering between our world and something else altogether. "Is that a way out?" I asked, breathless. "Maybe," Emily said, her eyes wide. But before we could decide, a final whisper rose above the rest, clear and commanding. "You cannot leave." The shadows lunged forward, and without thinking, I pulled Emily into the vortex. Everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on solid ground. Groggy and disoriented, I pushed myself up. The air was different here, still. The oppressive weight of darkness was gone, replaced by flickering light and the distant sounds of nature. "Emily," I called, my voice shaky. Panic surged again. I scanned the area, but she was nowhere in sight. I was alone. My heart raced as I took in my surroundings. Tall trees loomed overhead, sunlight filtering through the leaves. It was beautiful, but eerily quiet. The forest felt alive, yet something was off. A sense of dread hung in the back of my mind, and my instincts screamed that this place was no sanctuary. "Emily!" I shouted again, voice breaking. The only response was the rustle of leaves and the echo of my own fear. I got to my feet and brushed dirt from my clothes. My phone flickered back to life, the screen cracked but still working. I swiped it awake and saw that I had service. The signal made me feel slightly better. I took a deep breath and decided to move. Following a narrow path, I stepped cautiously, the soft crunch of leaves underfoot amplifying the silence. Each sound felt exposed in the stillness. As I walked, I hoped to find Emily or any clue of where we ended up. That's when I saw it, a structure in the distance. At first glance, it looked like an old ranger station, crooked and worn, partially hidden by overgrown bushes. My heart jumped. Maybe someone was there. Maybe they could help. I quickened my pace toward the building. As I approached, I noticed the door was slightly ajar. Hesitation gripped me. I pushed the door and it creaked open, revealing a dim interior filled with the smell of damp wood and mildew. "Hello?" I called, my voice tinged with urgency. There was no answer, just shadows huddled in corners and dust motes floating in the beams of light streaming through grimy windows. The memory of the shadows from the tunnel hit me with a sudden chill. I stepped further inside. The room was filled with old camping gear, worn-out maps, and rusting tools. A flicker of movement caught my eye in a back room. I froze, breath catching in my throat. "Emily?" I whispered, inching toward the doorway. A figure emerged from the shadows, but it wasn't her. A man, wild-eyed and grizzled, stepped into the light. He was dirty, clothes torn, and held a tattered notebook in his hands. "Did you come through?" he asked, his voice rasping. "Through what?" I asked, mind racing. He looked around nervously as if expecting someone or something to appear. "The vortex. You're not supposed to be here. It's dangerous." A cold knot tightened in my stomach. "Where's Emily? Have you seen her?" His expression darkened. "You're too late. If she's not already part of it." He trailed off, gaze shifting back toward the door. "Part of what?" I pressed, panic creeping back in. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed outside, making me jump. The man flinched, eyes wide with fear. "We have to hide," he yelled. Before I could respond, he grabbed my arm and yanked me toward the back room. It was too late. The door swung open, and an angry whisper filled the air. "You cannot escape." The man and I exchanged horrified glances, realization dawning. Whatever had haunted our escape was here, and it was hungry for more. "What do we do?" I gasped, heart racing as the shadows from the doorway slithered toward us. "I don't know," he shouted, panic in his eyes. With a sudden crash, the shadows rushed forward. Desperation clawed at me. I had to protect Emily, but first, I needed to understand what I was facing. "What's coming for us?" I shouted over the chaos as they closed in. "Something worse than you can imagine," he replied, and that only made my heart race faster. Then, out of the chaos, something gripped my arm. I turned to see a hand emerging from the shadows, and the world around me began to unravel once more. The grip tightened, icy fingers wrapping around my wrist. I gasped, struggling against the force pulling me toward the swirling darkness. The man shouted something I couldn't hear over my own panic. My vision blurred, colors bending and twisting like a funhouse mirror. Suddenly I was yanked away from the grasp, landing hard on the wooden floor. The man was on his knees, looking stunned. The shadows recoiled for a moment as if stunned by the disruption, before advancing again with a vengeance. "Get up!" I shouted, urgency slicing through the fear. "We don't have time!" He scrambled to his feet, eyes wild. "We have to escape! Now!" We dashed for the back of the ranger station, where a window gaped open, flanked by peeling paint and dust. I hesitated at the sill. "Climb," he urged, shoving me forward. "Go." I scrambled up, legs swinging out into the fresh air. The sunlight felt like a miracle on my skin, but I didn't have a moment to enjoy it. He followed close behind, landing beside me with a thud. The woods stretched out before us, thick and maze-like. The shadows still swirled within the ranger station, rattling the building as they demanded to be free. "What is this place?" I asked, adrenaline coursing through me. "Not where, but when," he replied, breathless. "We're in a pocket of time. The vortex opens. Before he finished, the air began to shimmer and warp around us. The trees and skies flickered, changing like TV channels. "Stay close!" he shouted as darkness crashed against the edges of our vision. I grabbed his arm, our surroundings becoming a swirling chaos of noise and color. "Emily!" I shouted, hoping she could hear me through the haze, but my voice felt swallowed by the rippling fabric of reality. Suddenly, the ground gave way beneath us. I yelped and clutched the man's arm tighter, and we tumbled downward into an eerie gray realm. We landed hard, scrapes and bruises forgotten in the face of a massive, unsettling vision ahead. Figures cloaked in shadow loomed around us, their faces obscured, indistinct whispers rising like a chorus. It was unnerving and unreal, like I'd entered a nightmare. "What are they?" I whispered, my voice barely holding. "I wish I knew," he replied, backing away to stand in front of me as if he could shield me from whatever terror lurked ahead. A flicker of recognition sparked in my mind as I studied the figures. They felt familiar. Ghosts of those lost. "Emily could be here," I blurted. "We have to find her. We have to try." The man hesitated, a plan forming behind his wild eyes. "If we split up, we might cover more ground. We can meet back here." "No, I can't," I protested, fear pooling at the base of my stomach. "What if you don't come back?" He looked conflicted, but resolute. "There's no time. She needs our help. Trust me." Before I could respond, he dashed into the shadows, his figure disappearing into a haze of black. I stood frozen, the whispering figures edging closer, alone again, trapped between my choices. Then, through the crowd of shadows, I saw a flicker of light, a familiar golden hair shimmering like a beacon. It couldn't be. "Emily!" I called, my heart racing. But as I stepped forward, the figures closed in, their whispers turning into a deafening roar. I had to act. Every voice screamed for me to run, to escape this place. But there was Emily, and I couldn't leave. "Help me," I cried out, fighting against the tide of darkness. But the shadows surged, drowning out my desperate pleas. In that moment, I realized I had to choose between fear and hope, and the shadows were waiting to decide for me. I pushed through the shadows, determined to reach that light. "Emily!" The name echoed through the dark, drowning in the cacophony of whispers. Fear settled deeper in my chest as I stumbled, trying to keep my eyes locked on the golden hair. It flickered in and out, trapped in a dance of darkness. The shadows lunged at me. Their whispers morphed into sinister laughter, mocking my urgency. I could feel their icy breath as they swirled around me. I couldn't think about the man who had disappeared. I had to focus. I had to find Emily. "Just a little closer," I murmured, desperation fueling my steps. I pushed aside the shadows. They pressed against me, but I fought back, imagining Emily's face. I couldn't abandon her like this. Then, in a blur of motion, I broke through the oppressive mass. I stepped into an open area surrounded by mist. The light was still there, flickering like a candle in a storm. I paused, breathing heavily. "Emily!" I shouted again, searching the gray swirls of air. For a moment, silence fell around me. "Where are you?" Then I felt something brush against my arm. I spun around, heart racing, ready to fight whatever was coming. But it was not a shadow. It was a hand. A small, delicate hand. "Please help me," a voice whimpered. I recognized it instantly. It was Emily. "Emily!" Relief washed over me. I grabbed her hand, pulling her toward me. Her eyes were wide, filled with the same fear that I felt. But she was here, alive. "The shadows," she started, her voice quivering. "They want to keep us here. They won't let us go." "I know," I replied, glancing back. The figures shifted, their forms writhing and swirling, ready to regroup. I could feel their anger. "Where's the other guy?" she asked, scanning the misty expanse. He went to look for you, I explained, pulling her closer. We have to find a way out. Just then, an unsettling vision appeared. A new figure emerged from the gloom, a tall silhouette with a blindingly bright aura. It loomed over us, its eyes gleaming as if it could pierce through the darkness. You shouldn't have come here. The voice echoed, a strange mix of authority and sorrow. Who are you? I challenged, raising my chin, determined not to show my fear. I am the guardian of this realm, it answered, stepping closer. You cannot leave without confronting what lies within. Emily clutched my arm tighter. What does that mean? Before the figure could respond, the ground began to shift. A rumbling noise echoed beneath us. My heart dropped as the darkness around us sharpened into focus. Shadows reached out, forming faces, people I recognized from my past, whispering secrets, teasing my mind. No, I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. Face them, the guardian urged. Only then can you escape. Fear twisted in my gut. I didn't want to face them, but Emily's presence steadied me. I looked at her, determination blazing in my chest. Okay, I whispered. But if we're going to do this, we have to do it together. As the shadows began to close in, I took a step forward, ready to confront my past. Then everything went dark. I woke up again, back on solid ground, but this time it felt different. The dampness of the earth beneath me was cool, refreshing, almost grounding. I opened my eyes, heart racing, searching for any sign of Emily or the guardian from before. "Emily!" I called out, voice echoing in the stillness. For a second, I thought I heard her answering voice carried by the wind, but it was gone, lost in the rustles and the faint whisper of trees. I got to my feet, bewildered. I was back in the forest, the very one where it all began. The tall pines whispered gently overhead, sunlight breaking through the branches. It looked almost normal, yet I could feel the shadows lurking just at the edges of this serene facade, an unsettling remembrance of the chaos I had just escaped. With every fiber of my being, I searched for any traces of her. "Emily!" I cried, frustration building in my throat. I felt so alone. The woods, once comforting, now felt like a trap closing in around me. Each rustling leaf made my heart pound, and shadows flickered in my periphery, distorting my sense of reality. "Please, just let me know you're okay," I murmured, almost to myself. Had she made it out, or was she lost within the shadows, part of the nightmare we'd faced together? A few feet away, something glinted in the sun, something familiar. It was my phone, still lying in the dirt, the screen cracked but functional. I quickly picked it up, hoping light and technology could guide me through the uncertainty. I swiped through contacts, heart racing, a fleeting hope of reaching someone. But the screen lit up, and I found nothing but static and a dim streaming of a glowing symbol that looked hauntingly familiar. The same markings we had seen around the stone structure. My heart sank. The forest felt enchanted and cursed all at once, a place of beauty twisted by the darkness lurking beneath the surface. I glanced around, feeling vulnerable and small amidst the tall trees, suddenly realizing how I had walked into their whispers. I took a deep breath and tried to steady myself. I had stood before shadows, lost ones. I had fought through chaos, but it felt infinitely harder to navigate this fragile peace, uncertain if I had truly escaped or if it was simply a suspension between worlds. Taking a step forward, the light seemed to change around me, and a sense of urgency flooded through. "Emily!" I called one last time, hoping against hope that maybe, just maybe, she could hear me. As I stepped deeper into the woods, a sudden gust of wind rustled through the branches, carrying something, an echo of laughter. I turned sharply, straining to decipher the sounds. Was that her laughter? A trick of my mind playing on insecurities? Or was it genuine? The further I ventured, the more that sound morphed. It broke apart, spilling into a myriad of whispers. "Stay," They beckoned, low and coaxing. A chill crept down my spine, and another part of me felt drawn toward the very place I had fled from, where darkness lurked hungrily at the edges of every thought. "Help me!" I shouted, my voice trembling against the counterpoint of quietude that surrounded me. The woods fell silent, and I was left in my own echoing desperation, battling uncertainty within myself. I turned back toward the trail behind me, my heartbeat hammering in my chest. Should I stay and confront those whispers, or should I flee from them? Just when I thought despair would swallow me whole, I caught a glimmer of fabric against the trees, a flash of golden hair flitting in the distance. I froze, breath hitching in my throat. Was it real? Or was it another echo of hope disappearing like mist in the morning light? With renewed resolve, I pushed through the thicket, determined to find that flash, to see if fate had finally conspired to bring Emily back to me. Deep down, I knew that as long as that connection remained, between love and fear, light and darkness, there was a chance to face whatever waited in those whispers. Whether it was a memory or a warning, the forest would reveal its secrets. And with every step I took toward that flashing possibility, a question lingered. Had I truly escaped? Or was I merely standing between what could be and what was, or who I hoped to find again? In the depths of that silence, the forest held its breath as I followed the fading laughter into the unknown.